Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, so we are ready to get this meeting moving, and I think we'll start with introductions. I guess I'll start. Linnea Madison on Lake Park Drive.
I'm Kathy Peterson on the Lark Street. Sorry.
I'm Dave Congeezer, Water Resources Specialist for the City of Tumwater.
Tom Sparks at the Barnes Lake Park condos.
Rusty Weaver, where was it?
Park
Lake
Drive.
Terrace, Lake Terrace Drive.
Well, I guess it's me, Dana Day, Lark Street.
Judith is in London. So
Oh,
she is
yeah.
excused.
And I'm Dan Smith, Director, Water Resources Sustainability, and current staff contact for the LMT. It looks like on our participant sides, we have Jerome with Jolt News. Welcome, Jerome.
And we have a celebrity guest who
No, we
just
don't.
walked in the door. We've got Doug
Excellent.
Dorling.
Doug, thanks for joining us. Welcome.
All right.
Yeah, let me check on that real quick. Dan, do you know the Wi-Fi password here off the top of your head?
Water guest, is that?
That's it, yeah. Oh, that one.
Maybe it's just, oh, no, I don't know the password.
I don't think there's a password for that.
Is,
I think it's just Tumwater, lowercase or uppercase. You try both ways. One of them should get you in. And I can see if I can figure it out from my phone here. Yeah, we should post that around City Hall. Hey, Dave, make a note.
Tumwater with capital
You
T.
got it?
oh, it is, okay,
Yep.
yeah, because it wasn't, okay, thank you.
Just Tumwater, right? Yeah, good.
Yep.
Okay,
Okay, in the agenda review, we do have a little modification to the agenda. We're switching number 7 and number 8 so that Dan can be excused a little earlier.
thank you.
And I noticed on the agenda, I am noted after the private property lake treatment section, and I think maybe that's supposed to be Kathy or,
Beck and I can help.
okay, I'll leave. Okay. Does anyone else have any comments on the agenda?
Is there a copy of the agenda down there? No.
Dave, can you,
No,
can you?
Yep.
Is it possible for you to bring it up on the screen for folks too?
Bet.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, so we're moving on to the approval of minutes. Starting first with the February 8th meeting minutes.
I reviewed those twice and originally I had concerns because I thought that the information about Doug's annual report could be really expanded on. So Doug and Dan and Dave and I worked together and I'm really pleased with the amount of information about the annual report. I think this is a good place for people to find that information. So I'm really happy with the minutes and I propose that they be accepted.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, okay, and shall we approve the March 29th?
I read those and had some comments that Dave incorporated and so I move that those be approved as well.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Alright. So number 5 is public comment.
Okay, what did that?
I don't know.
I'm
You have
sharing.
no- No members of the public. Unless Jerome would like to provide comment on anything.
Hello. No, I'm good. I have no comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any member comments?
Oh, I have a comment. I just think Kathy Peterson has been a fabulous member of the neighborhood this past month. As I have said before.
Thank you.
The picture of the deer in the water nuggets all over the country have wanted to know where we are, but I have not told them.
Yes.
Barnes Lake does have swimming deer now.
Thank you.
Documented.
Thank you for your,
That was incredible. I mean, that was just what?
yes.
Oh my God. Every day I go out now and I kind of look up your way and wonder. Oh,
Yeah.
Could happen any day, anytime.
and then, oh, and the fire, what did it, that was, they thought it
That
was
was-
just homeless?
It was along the church property.
Yeah.
There was a fire and fortunately I saw it called right away
You
and
just
they,
must know.
yeah, lots of smoke. And they came right away and they were very appreciative. And I guess there's lots of problems with the
Yeah.
lake.
Those are big trees. We do not want a
You
fire.
don't want fire.
Right.
You do not want a fire.
I don't know.
No, you do not, you do not want a fire.
Well, thanks.
Okay, moving on to general business, Dan.
Thanks, Linnea. So we're gonna start off with the advisory board and commission ethics policy. This is something I kind of briefly introduced at the last meeting. The city has updated its policies around commissions and boards and really just wanting to require all of the commissioners actually sign a policy. This is the same ethics information that the employees, staff, and elected officials are beholden to, as well as the committee members and commission members as well. It's just you in the past, you haven't had to actually sign a physical document. So kind of updating that process. And I think Dave has some copies, some hard copies for folks around the room to sign, and I will take care of the folks that aren't here. And Dana, I'll get you a copy either by a hard copy by mail or like DocuSign, where you can add a digital signature to it.
yeah.
So that we can have those on record, since our next meeting isn't for a little bit down the road. But really, a lot of this stuff, kind of represents common sense for elected officials, not using your position for personal gain, whether that's financial gain or influence or things along those lines. And I think with the Barnes Lake Group, there is a particular importance for these kinds of policies, particularly since you are stewards of the community's funds that are dedicated for the work that you're doing around Barnes Lake, and making sure that those funds are continue to be allocated, for the benefit of all property owners and all members of the LMD. So, in particular, avoidance of those conflicts of interest. We've had those conversations over time. The procedure and the process around shoreline lake treatments, really kind of, considered these kinds of ethical and considerations. So, you've been doing this work in this manner for a long time now. So just again, avoiding potential conflicts between private interest and public duties, remembering that, when that conflict does arise, the public interest, would be your principal concern. There is also, if there is ever a conflict for committee members, you are free to recuse yourself from an action. Just noting that for the record, let's say that, I can't really come up with a good example right now, but if there ever was that time where the board was making a decision that, had an inherent benefit to one of the property owners, LMD members around the lake for any particular reason, you would have to recuse yourself so it wouldn't, appear for a conflict of interest. The city interprets these kinds of conflicts to even include the appearance of a conflict. And so if that appearance occurs, if it's not a real conflict, but it might appear, it's always good to at least get on the record to say, hey, there might be a potential here. Let's consider that. We can always have a legal consult with our city attorney, if there is a concern whether or not a member should be voting on something. But again, we haven't come across that in particular because all of the decisions you made are for the benefit of the lake or the benefit of the community or benefit of the district as a whole. So hasn't necessarily been an issue. Refrain from securing. Yes.
Well, I was just wondering, because I've heard that Kathy Peterson has been lobbied by the deer community in our area, who all want their pictures posted. And I don't know, she may be getting remuneration. So maybe they're
Well,
leaving
you know,
presents in her
unfortunately, the deer,
yard.
the deer population is not a paying member of the LMD, so, you know, it's good comment to have, but, you know, unfortunately, they don't have much recourse around the
Not yet,
table.
anyway.
Yes.
Not yet, absolutely, right? So, thanks for that, Rusty. You know, of most importance of any financial, you know, like, let's say, not necessarily the deer community, but a neighbor was saying, hey, Kathy, I'm gonna give you $20, you know, to, you know, make Doug come over here to my house and do a little extra work on the LMD's dime. That would be inappropriate. That would certainly be a conflict of interest, you know, hence why we have the private shoreline process for those folks to be able to contract with Doug directly, provided we have them on record, we have the file, we have the application. So should anybody question whether or not, you know, there was an activity that, you know, Doug is completing under the city's and LMD's permit, that it was actually privately taken care of, not necessarily used with the public LMD funds. So you can kind of see how sometimes, you know, with that work that Doug is doing, it can kind of create a gray area, which is why we want to have good documentation. And then really lastly, talking about confidential privileged information, you know, if Doug had some proprietary aquatic management treatment that, you know, the board was privy of, the committee was privy to, you know, certainly wouldn't be allowed to go and share that with other lake management districts, you know, without Doug's authorization. Or available to the public unless Doug authorized those kinds of things. But as we know, Doug doesn't necessarily have any proprietary treatment formulations, as far as I know. I think we're good there too. So any questions on this particular piece?
So is this border committee, the Barnes Lake Management Steering Committee?
Correct.
Yes.
You are an appointed official for the city of Tumwater.
Yeah. Got it.
Oh, boy.
I think it's
Okay.
good.
Okay. Well, you know, if you need a couple of minutes to review it, you know, take some time during the meeting, but if you can, leave a signed copy with Dave. If for whatever reason you want to take a little bit more time to review it, just get us a signed copy back at your earliest convenience. And like I said, I'll reach out to Judith and Lilani and Jody and all the folks that couldn't be here tonight, and Gary, you know, to get them, you know, on file and in record, and we'll work through that. Speaking of Lilani, has anybody had any conversations with her lately? I think she's missed the last couple of meetings, and so I'm just.
She's around. She's here.
If she's.
I thought she'd be coming tonight, but she's home.
Okay,
I mean, she's around.
okay, well, good. I'm just glad
And nothing
nothing's.
dramatic has happened.
Oh, she's supposed to say, I'm not coming.
Sure. Well, I'll reach out to her and, you know, kind of, you know, remind her of the meeting schedule and kind of get a feeling for, you know, where she's
Yeah,
at.
I'll mention it too.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rusty.
She signed up.
All right.
Contact, did you get the notifications?
Oh,
Meetings?
sure she did.
Oh, that's, nobody can know that information.
I could ask their
But
communication.
we're not looking at.
Yeah, we're not, yeah.
So we can check on our end too. We're kind of relying on that as our way of getting meeting information out, so.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so moving on to the next item. Let's see what we got here. Work plan review. We got Doug in the room today, so look forward to hearing a good update on all the treatment activities, the aerial photo assessments. Were you able to get a flyover done, Doug? Excellent, right on. Cool, so we're trucking right along. I think you all saw with the assessments that went out last month, we were able to also include some information to the general public. Just had one question from one property owner come up in the condos. Tom, I encouraged him to reach out to you. Also encouraged that individual, I'm trying to remember his name now, you know, as he had some pretty good interest in what was going on with the lake, to consider an application. So I don't know if you've had any conversations with potential applicants out there. more
There was a
other
guy
interesting-
that mentioned that at our annual meeting and I sent him some information, but I haven't heard any follow-up, so I don't know if it's the same person or not.
Okay, yeah, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now, but so that's good. Sounds like collections are going well. I'm gonna wait until, basically give it a full, 40 days, 45 days before we really start looking to see how those collections come back, because sometimes they take a little bit. So I'll give you certainly an update, maybe midsummer before our next meeting, how that's looking, and if we have any follow-up activities planned. So before we send out any notices for but definitely before we send out any notices for liens, I want to make sure that the committee knows folks within the neighborhoods that they represent, how things are going out there. So we want to review the committee assignments with you all tonight. See who's up for renewal on their term this year. Looks like we have a handful of folks. Dana, Linnea, Tom, Jody, and Leilani. Their terms all expire this September. So, I won't put you on the spot, but I will be following up with you probably over the next month to hopefully learn of your interest in reappointment for the committee. But obviously, if conditions have changed for you, just let us know and we'll reach out further into the LMD. Other than that, we still have 2 vacancies, both for the condos and barn south neighborhood. What was that?
Nothing.
Okay, I thought I heard somebody. Cool. So that really kind of wraps us up for this month. I know Dave was out there doing an initial round of water quality monitoring, and he's got another one coming up for June, and he's got some interesting information to share with you about water quality coming up here shortly. Other than that, July, August, just kind of operation as normal. We'll have some shoreline treatments, some chemical treatments, shoreline treatments as needed if folks are interested, and some July water quality and August water quality monitoring. I'd also like to, maybe at one of those water quality monitoring events or somewhere along the line, introduce you to Patrick Soderberg. He is our new water resources program manager, so effectively taking over the position, my old position. So glad to get some good support there. He's also got some good experience with lake management districts. He come to us from Thurston County. He was there in their Republican Environmental Health division for, I want to say, close to 25 years. So it's a really good find for us. I've worked with Patrick in the past. He's done a lot of good work around integrated pest management. He's done some good pesticide reviews. So he's got a pretty thorough background and understanding in the kind of work that we do. So I'm interested to introduce him to y'all and certainly have him join us for the walkabout, as well as our next meeting in October, which unfortunately I will be out of the office for. So between him and Dave, I know you'll be well taken care of at that next meeting, but I'd like to get you all introduced to him over the next couple of months. And then look forward to having him join us on that walkabout as well.
His name
And that's
is
really
Patrick.
kind of Patrick Soderberg,
name-
correct?
Would it be okay if he came out sometime, took an hour or so and came out? We could extend an invitation to him for that.
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, like I said, I would love to get him introduced to you before the next walkabout meeting, and then maybe there's an opportunity around the water quality events or something like that. So yeah, we'd find some time to do that with you over the summer here sometime.
Yeah, I'll extend that right away. Invitation.
Fantastic.
So
Thanks, Ken.
Yes, Dan is basically the director now of water resources, and so he used to be the manager. And so it's another layer of management between me and my counterparts and Dan. So like on the ground, day-to-day management would be Patrick, and then Dan would kind of handle the higher level stuff that goes on between elected officials and our group and mayor and our group.
Dan will be getting too important to mess with it. A little. Is that right, Dan?
No, I'm just a glorified paper pusher. So, Dave makes it sound a little bit too important, but at the end of the day, trying to handle all the administrative details, really just kind of keeping, folks with the resources that they need, making sure Dave's got what he needs to do his job, all that kind of stuff. So, making sure the elected officials are fairly aware of what we're doing and working with them to, get legislative, resources as well, some more funding for various things. So yeah, there's lots of good stuff there. Plus, I don't know if Dave had mentioned this or even I had mentioned this before, but yeah, we've just been authorized to move our department off-site. So we will be actually setting up our offices over at South Puget Sound Community College here in the next few months, sometime over the summer. So, that's like the kind of stuff that I get to do now, buy furniture, build an office and, make sure we get to do stuff like that. So it's a real exciting opportunity for us because, one of the aspects of that, because we'll be living on the college campus, we'll be putting together an internship mentorship program around environmental sciences. So really trying to help develop the next generation of, public and environmental health scientists out there, which is really neat because, SPSCC has got the Percival Creek that runs right through it. We'll be looking at working with students for water quality monitoring. So Barnes Lake provides another great opportunity for stuff like that, where, we can get other folks out there, energetic folks with creative ideas on how to protect water quality, how to, monitor it and using different kinds of newer technologies. So really a lot of cool opportunities looking for us coming up. But so yeah, that's kind of one of the most exciting things that we get to do. And that's the kind of stuff that I'll be kind of getting to play with. But Dave gets to get his hands wet out there and monitor and do all that kind of stuff and work with folks. So, and then Patrick, of course, will be kind of taking on a lot of the projects that I used to try and keep a handle on while I'm doing all this other work too. So really, I'm, like I said, really glad to have him aboard and take some of the load off and provide Dave with some more support. And, Dave can knock on my door every day for a week and be like, "Hey, Dan, remember that thing I keep asking you about?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm getting it." So he gets some folks to help him out with that kind of stuff too. So.
And will the meeting still be here at City Hall or will we be over at your new digs?
No, they'll still be here at City Hall. So yeah, it'll be primarily just for administrative offices. So our offices will be over there, supplies will be over there, but any public contact will still be at City Hall. Very limited opportunities, for folks, unless, it's like a smaller meeting or something like that. We could technically, I guess, we're going to have a meeting room set up. Depending on the size there, we could host them over there at SPSCC, but that'll be something we'll talk about down the road, depending on how we haven't even had the architect show us what it's going to look like yet. So stay tuned. Stay tuned for that.
Nice.
Any questions on the work plan? All right. Well, the next one's real easy. The budget review. No expenses, so there's been no changes to the budget on that end, and the revenues are just starting to trickle in. So we don't, like I said, I don't have a complete picture of that for you just yet. I don't think Dave's got one in here. Okay, nope. I thought he was trying to scroll just to one. So yeah, there's really no report to show you today. Like I said, I'll provide an update mid-month, probably July, to show you how the status of the assessments have been going, and if we've had any expenditures by then. So I would anticipate water quality expenditures for the work that Dave's just started doing too. So other than that, we seem to be on budget. Everything is good to go. Any particular questions or needs for for funds over the coming couple of months besides Doug? All right. Well, then that's all I got for you. Back to you, Linnea.
Okay, moving backwards to lake management, and first up is Doug Dorling's update on lake treatments.
Okay, so I guess we'll just start from the beginning. We were able to go out earlier and survey the lake with the electronic equipment, and I think, is that map available on here? Sure.
I thought I saw
In that corner.
Oh, come on, where are you? I had it up here. Let me grab it real quick, hold up.
Ah, there it is.
Whoa.
Dan, can you see this map okay? Dan, can you see the map okay, or do I need to stop sharing?
You gotta stop
don't see
sharing the agenda and then reshare the screen with the new piece. Fantastic.
Okay. I got it.
All right.
Hmm.
So basically, that was the electronic survey we did, it's probably a month ago. And it's pretty similar to the other surveys we've done. The scale is the same. The red area is 100% weed covered. The blue area is 0% weed cover. And the green and yellow areas are obviously the lighter. The green is maybe 10 to 15, 20%, and the yellow is maybe 30%. So you can see on Barnes Lake, although it looks like there may be a lot of weeds there, the other side of the story is what those areas represent. A lot of those green areas, when we surveyed it, was filamentous algae growing on the bottom of the lake. So it wasn't these big actual weeds coming up to the water surface. It was filamentous algae that was going on the bottom. And in fact, there weren't very many weeds in Barnes Lake at that time. So what we did is we took this map and then we did an aerial survey of the map with the drone. And that was an interesting survey because we have not registered our new drone yet with the FAA. And there is a section on the Barnes Lake shoreline where when the drone runs up against it, it won't go past it because you're into the airport. And it was pretty interesting. We couldn't figure out what's going on, but we figured it out.
Oh, so you couldn't make the drone fly into that area?
We couldn't make it there. After a lot of the feds required newer drones to have a program in it that didn't allow you to go into those specific areas. You can get into it when you're registered and you go through the paperwork. With this drone, we didn't have that done yet. So we did half the survey with the new drone and half the survey with the other drone. And the other drone was allowed to go into that area. So we've got the complete aerial survey. It was just done with two different drones.
How high do you fly the drone?
Oh,
200
it depends. Oh, 200 what?
feet?
Oh, you can go much higher than that.
Oh, you do?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
But when we go around the lake, we're only maybe at 100 feet, 50 feet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But even with that, you have to get.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, it's just like it's like you hit a wall. It's like you hit a wall and it won't go. It will not go. But we got around it. And it was a good survey. It looks great. I mean, they haven't put it into a format where we can actually show it on the screen, but it looks just like the other surveys. There not very many lily pads on the lake. And the shoreline looks pretty good. It looks very clear. We didn't see very much bladderwort flowering on the lake at all, which is a good sign.
So what was the date of that one? That survey?
The survey was May 17th.
And what's the check part, the check mark? Or,
Okay, we'll get into that.
oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, so what we did was we take that map and that's our baseline map. So when we went out to the lake last week, we treated the lake in certain areas. And we were only targeting one weed. If you go out on the lake, you're gonna notice there's this weed that's growing in the water. It's this big broad leaf under it, big brown broad leaf. And it's a thick leaf, thick stem plant, and it grows in these big patches. There's a lot of it over in Kathy's area.
What's it called?
It's called, well, it's common name is broadleaf pondweed.
Okay.
The scientific name is Potamogene amplifolius. But it's pretty common. It's a tough one to kill because it has a really thick stem and it's got an underground rhizome system. So these,
That's what we've been seeing.
yeah. So these white checked areas are the areas we treated. Now, that's not to say that that particular plant isn't in other areas of the lake. These are the areas we felt that it was most appropriate to treat to continue to allow access out in the main water body. Doesn't make much sense, at least to us, unless the board of Barnes Lake and the community of Barnes Lakes wants us to treat patch of these weeds out in the middle of the lake. I mean, it's not inhibiting recreational use, it's not inhibiting any fisheries, it's not doing any of that stuff. But it is a good species for fish. Fish like it. So we don't want to go into the lake and wipe it all out. So we're selective in where we treat for this specific weed. We've chosen areas where we think it's the most appropriate. Now, if the board or the committee feels there's another area on the lake that they feel needs to be treated for this particular weed, we don't have a problem going in and treating it. But I think if you look at these particular areas, these are pretty critical access areas to the lake.
Yeah.
Doug,
Probably what's gonna happen is, since it is a pretty tough weed to control, we'll probably come back in about 2 weeks to see how the control has worked. And we probably will retreat some of these areas again.
And how's that applied? Is it crystals that you sprinkle in
It's
that
a,
area?
no, it's a liquid material. It's injected down into the water.
Okay, so.
is that the fluoridone or
In
something
those
else?
areas, beats the threshold to kill the stuff. Because it's gonna dissipate if it's,
Well, the material only has to be in, it only has to be in contact with the plant for about 3 or 4 hours.
Okay.
So you will have a lot of dissipation outside the area, so weeds outside that area. This particular weed, it will not kill it.
Yeah.
It will impact bladderwort though, which was good.
Yeah.
So if there's any bladderwort that was growing probably within 200 feet, 250 feet of these treatment sites, we probably killed it.
so the concentration is high enough and for long enough before it all dissipates, so it'll
Exactly.
kill them. Yeah, okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Hey Doug, can you hear me? What's is that fluoridone that you're using for that as well? Or is that a different material?
Fluoridone does treat the broadleaf pondweed, but it's expensive. And you can't treat small sections of the lake with fluoridone. You gotta treat like 5 10-acre plots with fluoridone. Because it has to stay at a certain concentration for 6 to 8 weeks. If you're only treating 2 acres, it dissipates very quickly. So you'd have to
Sure.
treat that same area 2 or 3 times. That's why when we used
Okay.
fluoridone the first time, we had to come into Barnes Lake 3 times to treat it. To maintain the concentration. The half-life on it is about 14 days. So.
Okay.
uh,
Are you also intending to treat with fluoridone this year, or are you just kind of targeting some of these species that are inhibiting access? With that different material? What's that
We don't
material?
anticipate treating on fluoridone this year. From
Okay.
what we've seen, I mean, it may change. There's a huge waterfowl population on the lake. This particular weed probably came into the lake from the waterfowl. They probably picked up the seeds from another lake, came over here and deposited the seeds into the lake. You just see in the patches where it's growing. That's typically what happens. But we don't see fluoridone use this year on the lake, and we don't see fluoridone use next year on the lake. The dicot appears to be holding the bladderwort off to a point where we really don't need it. I mean, I didn't see one flowering bladderwort plant on the lake when we were out there.
It's true.
So is
If
dicot
there's
the stuff that you're
bladderwort
using
out
for this new emergent as well?
Was that?
Is dicot what you're using for this new emergent as well?
No, for emergent plants, we're using Mazipir. The Mazipir and Triclopyr. So when we spray the lily pads, that's a totally different material.
Right. Okay, great.
What was used for this treatment?
What was the,
What was the treatment that you used for?
okay, so for the submerged, we used to use a material called dicot and aquathol K.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for the lily pads, we used the Mazipir.
Okay, and you used both of those this season?
Yes.
Okay.
So we treated the weeds, we went back and we sprayed the lily pads. And that was I think there was a little bit of maybe the notification wasn't that great. Because we did have a resident down the far north end of the lake just went nuclear. Yeah,
About what?
well, I don't think people understand what the process is. We were down by Gary's place and. Basically, we ran out of material on the boat. And there was a gentleman down there that is in that very shallow northern section. I mean, just
Like, oh, come over here and
going crazy. And we knew what he wanted, but. So we left. We had to go out to the main lake to refill the boat up with water and refill with materials.
so he was wanting you to come treat there?
And he thought we just kind of like gave him the finger and took off. So he went in and his wife just left a real nasty email.
Oh, I'm really sorry, Doug.
Well, it happens, but she apologized after she realized that we did come back and treat it. But it was just really strange. And they're down in the very northern section of the lake where it's really shallow.
Yeah.
I think that's Gary's.
Yeah, up in
Gary and
that area.
Joey's areas. They
Right.
represent.
And you
No, I
know,
don't want to.
okay, that's right, yeah.
It's done, it's over, and she realized she made a mistake.
Of course, I've been that person myself. Like, get over here. You're like.
To mine.
But you were able to go back.
Yeah, we went in there
Right.
and I think what happened was her neighbor. That was next to him or next to the lady that was complaining, or the gentleman was complaining. She must have called him up and was complaining, oh, they didn't get in here, I don't know. And he must have told her, oh, no, they came in here, I saw her. And then she sent another email back.
Part of our outreach will be semaphore code signal charts. So
Yeah.
people on shore will be able to communicate with Doug on the boat.
And I think the biggest problem, the people up in the northern end of the lake don't realize that access is so limited up there.
Oh, yeah.
That's true.
And the more, the water's going down already.
They don't realize that
Really true.
when the boat goes in there, I mean, we're sucking down everything within about 10 feet of the boat is underneath the water. And they don't, so maybe we need to explain to those people a little bit more. what the-
I never realized how shallow it really is.
Yeah. it really is.
Hey, Doug.
It gets really shallow.
Where it is?
Oh, yeah, and over sections over there, it's very shallow. Look past, you see it sucked right underneath.
Hey,
But
Doug,
that was really the only negative experience.
Oh, I'm sorry.
are there opportunities for those owners up there in the north end of the lake to get treatment through like shoreline treatments if you can't access it or it's not gonna be effective by boat?
But there was one year we did treat one of the properties up there from the shoreline. But we haven't had any requests to do that, since then.
That's a private thing, right? I mean, that's
Well,
between you and, oh,
I don't think so. I think that's a part of the LMD.
oh, it is.
Well, yeah, I was thinking where Doug might be able to access the lake from the shoreline to at least do kind of ordinary high water treatments, and then
Oh,
if there was
because of the
something
low
above and
water.
beyond,
Oh,
they would also
We
participate in that
brought
program.
the big truck in there and sprayed that area. So that's something we can think of again, but yeah, otherwise this lady's not gonna pay her dues. That's what she said. If you
Wow.
can't treat in here, I'm not paying.
Your children will.
Yeah, somebody will. So that,
eventually.
that was our experiences on. Now, the water level, I don't know where it seemed to me that the water level is lower now than it was last year at this time, am I right?
Is it?
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's going down.
Yeah, we can look at the water levels.
Yeah, I was
It's
gonna.
lower than it was last year, for sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Boy, that's.
So anyway, we did get over to Dana's and we got that mat moved. Which if we had moved that mat, there was no way we would have been able to launch the boat.
Oh, I see.
No possible way.
So is that the one that's kind of round?
Yep, that's the
Looks like
ground.
hay,
Yep, we had
hay
sprayed.
island?
Yeah, hey, yeah, that's what we had sprayed that last year to kill it off. And if we hadn't killed it, we wouldn't have been able to move it. Because the roots would have been down in the bottom, but it moved pretty easy. The problem was trying to secure it to the other shoreline. You think about all these great ideas of how to secure a floating mat to the shoreline, and on paper they work great, but when you go down the field, they're not so great.
Well, it's still there.
Oh, yeah, no, we're pretty sure it's anchored pretty well now.
Yeah,
we
they
first,
taught yesterday.
yeah, we first tried anchoring it with, those big, long
10 foot, yeah.
poles, you know, they sort of fencing. We tried pounding them.
Metal pole?
Yeah.
The metal,
And then
Oh,
tie a
okay.
rope to it and.
Yeah.
Well, as soon as the metal pole got about 2 feet into the ground, it disappeared. 10-foot poles, it just
And
disappeared.
it breaks apart too.
Yeah. We
Well, I
tried
say
moving
it was-
those.
It was quite the process. It was amazing. I tried to get it on video and I've got some video, but for them to stand on the island. I'm looking out there and there's 2 guys on the island and pretty soon they just started moving it. It's crazy.
Oh.
Yeah, the whole.
It was really
the
cool.
whole thing moved at once, but anyway, so eventually, what we did is how we secured it is we went, and we've got the type of pillar they use for your deck. Cement pillar, and it's got that
Oh,
little
yeah.
metal thing for a 4x4 on it.
Right, right.
So we took that, kind of roped to the end of it, threw it over the one end of the mat. And then we took a rope, went to the main island, did the same thing, winched it up. And I think there's 4 anchoring points on it, so it's there. I can't imagine it moving unless the rope breaks.
So do people know where it is?
no. Is it,
I can, like, if
I
I'm not
would guess.
mistaken, like, isn't it like right around here?
oh, it's way off the
Oh,
air.
no, it's over by,
It's on the other side.
yeah, right.
So where are
Well, let me
you?
show you where it is.
Okay.
Let me see, we are
Where
over,
are you pointing? I can't see.
Well, we
right
don't
here.
Yeah,
know
maybe
yet.
Dave
somewhere
can,
right in
maybe
here.
Dave can point
Oh,
on it on the
that's
map
what it
too.
Yeah, somewhere right in here.
Near DOT Island.
Hey, hold it.
Yeah.
Yeah, cursor there.
Yeah, because there's a bunch of islands that are kind of.
Clark Island, DOT Island.
Yeah.
I think we should rename it Beaver Island. Big Island.
Yes, true.
I mean, if you got on the water, you'll see it. It's this big round mat just sitting there.
Hey,
I mean, it's hard not to see. There are a lot of smaller mats floating around, but I don't know how successful we'd be moving those and securing them.
we got wind yesterday. There was one that was right in front of our house and then Dave stopped by for a second and then I said, oh, look at this, it was gone. It's like, and it went right over to, the condos.
So that was the mat. So we do have a reasonable way to secure the mats and to move the mats. Where they end up, sometimes, we start pushing these things. We know where we want to bring them, but sometimes they don't actually go where we want them to go.
So that Hay Island, isn't that just gonna kind of disintegrate?
It's gonna disintegrate and eventually it'll sink back down to the bottom unless prior to the time when it sinks, the ducks come in, or the seeds, some seeds come on, but get blown onto the island and you start getting new green growth.
Again.
That could happen. That could happen. The one thing we noted, other thing we noticed was over by behind the Department of Transportation building.
Yeah.
The entrance to that narrow canal from Kathy Peterson's house, there's about, I don't know, maybe 100 feet, 200 feet where it's pretty open now. Whereas yours,
And that's where another one broke off,
Yeah.
just in this windstorm.
I mean, that's pretty open right now.
It is, it's really nice.
Yeah, I'm pretty surprised to see that. So we just deal with them when we can. But
It doesn't look like it's as good of access, people like to go around the lake
right,
from our Lark Island over to the condos. And it looks like it's really closing off on that, I guess, southwest.
Oh, you mean on the water? Oh, yeah,
yeah.
water goes down.
Yeah, there are some areas where there are a lot of these small mats that have just accumulated. And I don't think there's much you can do about it. So that was the end of that.
Are there any other plans to push mats around this year, or are we kind of at the end of mat moving season?
I think we're probably at the end of mat removal season. I mean, we didn't have any other complaints or issues or recommendations to move any other mats, so we didn't.
Yeah, they're just starting to pop up on my side, but I know there's only that small window of opportunity from
Yeah, when you can see them.
when the water level's high enough to move them and. they've
Yeah, your
also-
area is gonna be, will be, it's gotta be done real early in the season.
Yeah.
3 inches
Makes a big difference.
Oh,
right?
yeah, when you're getting these snaps.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, yeah, your area is really shallow. But they can be moved, but it's gotta be done early in the season, real early. I don't think we probably could have moved them, when we moved that big map. Because I think the water level is still too low for, at least for your area of the lake.
Mhm.
Yeah, we were 6 inches higher last year this time.
Was it? Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. The only other thing we're gonna do is when the water level, and it will go down quite a bit this year, from what we've seen in other lakes. We will bring some rock in and kind of expand the launch site a little bit. It seems to have narrowed off some of the rocks must have just sunk into the muck.
Go over Dan.
Yeah, over things.
Well, I know that, at ours where I've used, when our neighbor replaced her driveway. And this is years ago when I did crazy things like this, but I got a bunch of the old driveway and I made steps down to go out to get on our little dock. And those things now are, some of them are, they're there, but they're down there, somewhere.
In the mud.
It's really amazing. Yeah, they just.
They just sink in the muck. It's,
Yeah.
But we should be able to get, we should be able to launch the smaller boat. Probably for another 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks. And that's when we'll come back, we'll check the weeds out, we'll spray the lily pads again that we can reach. And then that'll be it for the year.
Wow.
A year.
Thank you.
Yeah, unless we come back and like what Dan was suggesting is to come back and appease these property owners at the very north end of the lake. And bring the truck down with the big spray tank in it and pull a hose and spray those areas.
From the bank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The problem, the problem I see is that I don't know what the benefit is.
Yeah, but I think the goodwill
That's
is worth,
goodwill,
is
yeah,
worth something.
yeah, because it's gonna have to be sprayed every single year. And by the
I was
time
gonna
we
say, Doug,
spray it,
like I say, maybe at a minimum, it's worth maybe a site visit, with Dave or myself to go out there, at least talk to those property owners about the efficacy of those treatments. Because if all it is spraying the weeds so you can see water surface versus, and they're just going to degrade and build up sediment in that space anyway, it's like, yeah, let's talk to them about the efficacy of treatments and then, what might be, feasible to do out there. And that might be, and help us get a better view of what they're looking for, what their goals are in that end of the lake too. So
that'd be great, yeah, because I think I think some of the problem is that they're paying into a program. And we see this all the time, is that they want to see some type of benefit.
Yes.
Even if it's so short-lived and it really doesn't make much sense.
right.
Could we maybe somehow add that corner of the lake to the walkabout? We don't really.
It's hard to
need it.
get there. I mean, unless you know. Something.
Yeah.
We did walk that
Yeah.
Yeah, we at one point.
all the way across the Gary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which square area are we talking about here?
The north point,
The
yeah,
Linwood
yeah.
address.
up in there, yeah. Right.
We have a stormwater easement right about in here.
Yeah, okay.
Well, no, I guess it's more in here in Lake Terrace, isn't it, Dan?
Yeah, one property over.
Oh,
We have one
I
on the
see
northeast side of the lake as well, but it'd probably be better because it's not necessarily clear. So we can reach out to some property owners when we get ready to do that
The
walkabout.
gentleman down
We
there,
can reach out
the
directly.
gentleman down there with the far north end that has the solar panels on his roof.
Yeah.
Really nice guy. I mean,
Yeah,
he'd throw a party for us.
Well, we have a date.
I think you would, so, yeah.
September.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't imagine him saying.
We'll reach out to those property owners and see if we can get some
That'd
specific
be a good
access.
idea. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Hey, folks, I gotta say goodbye. I'm gonna sign out. I'm gonna take off. So good to see y'all. Dave, thank
Safe
you for
travels.
taking care of everybody.
Yeah, thank
We'll
you.
see you
Right,
later.
Gary,
Thank
Dan.
you.
Safe travels.
Dan, be careful of the high ground in Florida. The highest
And
point in
alligators.
Florida is 400 feet. Don't get hurt. Man, Florida is so flat.
I think that just about covers it all.
You're not leaving.
We have a couple topics
Yeah.
of, that are kind of, I think, general discussion or.
All right, let's go for it.
And I don't know
Our name got.
how deep we're gonna dig into these, but we've got the acceptance level of unwanted weeds, which is also somewhat related to wetland preservation for phosphorus control.
Okay, let's talk about the wetland thing. And I briefly talked about it last time, is that the reason why Barnes Lake, why the water is so clear, is because of the wetland. The islands, they're just taking all the nutrients out of the water. Now, I don't know what you guys run on your water chemistries. You guys run a soluble reactive phosphorus or orthophosphorus
Total phosphorus, total nitrogen. So we're-
total?
Yeah.
But you don't run orthophosphorus. Yeah, you really want to run orthophosphorus.
So is that like, you're saying when we go out and do the.
Yeah, when you want to take your lake, when you do your water sampling, there's two components to phosphorus in the water. One is total phosphorus and one is soluble reactive phosphorus or orthophosphorus. Now, total phosphorus is, they take a water sample, they break it up and they run the phosphorus on it. Well, that includes any of the algae that's in a water sample, any organic, inorganic material that's in there. But when you do a soluble reactive phosphorus, what they do is they filter all that out. So all you have is the phosphorus that's in the water column that's available for algae growth.
So where,
So that's the
who
significant.
does that? Who?
The lab does that.
Lab could do that.
Yeah,
So you
We
found a lab?
We could just ask them.
Yeah.
We're kind of shopping around for a new lab right now. I guess it was a UPS strike, and so
Oh, yeah.
getting our samples up to the lab right now in Edge and Burlington is gonna be challenging, but there's some local labs, I think. Libby Environmental, we were gonna talk to them. Water Lab in Tacoma is another one that we've used in the past too. Try to reduce some of the shipping costs would be better, in my view, but we need to make sure that they can run some of those analytes.
a lot of like, they run total phosphorus because it's one of the parameters they use to determine what the trophic level of the lake is. Well, we really don't want to, doesn't make any difference. Every year they find out what the trophic level of Barnes Lake is, because we know what it is. But the orthophosphorus is the one that's gonna drive the algae growth.
So if the phosphorus is already in something else, it's not available.
Exactly, and that's
So-
part of your
So
total phosphorus.
it's neutral. I know.
Exactly.
But it's the stuff that's free that.
The orthophosphorus is active phosphorus, the one that's free, the one that's available to algae, anything that's going in the water. And there's a limit, I mean, so you can monitor that, and if you have, I bet the orthophosphorus level on Barnes Lake is like, 0.10.
I have a question. So don't some of the colleges have students that are training for stuff like this that would maybe a course that they take and they would love to try and sample our water and see what's in it and keep tabs of it and stuff?
Problem is, you already have somebody sampling it. All they gotta do is take the sample and bring it to the lab. You're gonna have to pay for the water analysis, no matter who does it. It's-
Right, but that's a learning
it's-
tool for college students, isn't it?
It can be, I mean, there's a defined method that they use to determine the analytes that they're running for. So I mean, running the methodology to find our target analyte it's not really a problem, I guess. Some of the things that I'm thinking about right now too with this type of thing is, and I was gonna get into in a little bit, is that Barnes Lake recently discovered Barnes Lake is on the 303D list for phosphorus, which
Ah,
means it's phosphorus impaired, meaning and they use total phosphorus as the measurement for that. And so that's what we measure that.
Meaning we've got too much or too little.
Yes, this was gonna get to. So this means we have too much phosphorus in the lake based on the state standards that have been set for our ecoregion within the state. So our ecoregion is Puget Sound Lowlands.
Yeah.
They set the phosphorus level for the state standard at 2 micrograms, I think it is. We're hovering right around 4 or 5. So we're above the state standard. Now there's a lot of things that contribute to that. I'd like to understand a little bit more about, what Doug's saying about the organophosphorus, or orthophosphorus, I'm sorry, and understand how we can, are there things that we can do as a neighborhood to help us not contribute to the phosphorus problem that we have in Barnes Lake. Now, it probably doesn't, it's not a problem based on what we're seeing in some of the algae growth, but it's still, the data suggests that we're still not meeting the state standard. So, so yeah, there's a lot of sources for phosphorus. And Doug, I don't want to steal your thunder at all if you had anything else to
Oh,
say
no, go
about
ahead.
that part. But the fact that, we're the 303D listing basically means that, it's an impaired water body. So like right now, there's the Deschutes River is on the 303D list for temperature and sediment and things of that nature. So the 303D list basically says that something is wrong with this water body, and there's going to have to be a cleanup plan or something like that for this. We're not there yet with Barnes Lake. I'm not sure why we're not quite there with Barnes Lake, because ecology hasn't come down and said, hey, you need a cleanup plan for this lake. They haven't really come to us and said that yet. So, but the fact that we have a management district working in this lake, taking water quality samples, using an accredited lab, I think that's important for us to work with. So there's things that we can do though, and I kind of went and prepared this little bit right here.
Can I, before you say that, one question that I have is this something that changes like,
yes.
and like a lot?
Has Barnes Lake been categorized as a 303D lake, or is it just? Is DOE said, yes, you are a 303D lake, so they've got it documented and it's on their list as a 303D lake?
Yeah,
Or is it something they're just kind of?
let me see if I can, well,
Because
not maybe for a later time, but yeah, if you go to their map
Yeah,
of the 303D listings for all the state, Barnes Lake shows up. It's
okay, so what that does,
category 5, I think it is.
yeah, that's gonna change the treatment approach. As a 303D lake, you need some type of program that's going to convince the state that you are not increasing phosphorus levels in the lake. So there's gonna be more monitoring required.
Which costs money, so I guess I was looking at, is this something that needs to be tested every month, like we go out, or is it like something that if we tested it once a year, it would be adequate? Because I'm just asking.
Well, it all depends what your goals are. I think if you're testing, we basically recommend a minimum of once every season. So you take a spring, summer, fall, winter.
Oh, once every.
But
season.
we're already doing, I mean, we're collecting
Yeah,
data.
you guys are
So
doing it,
it
yeah.
costs the same amount of.
It's, yeah, for us to monitor, it's gonna be the same.
Yeah.
I think, with the state, and I worked with this a little bit with the shellfish stuff when I was working at the Department of Health is with the shellfish program, they closed down a shellfish bed because there would be people coliform in the water. And so they'd come to the community and said, well, now that we got this shellfish bed closed, the community, you have to do something about it. And so, they'd go be out there testing, septic systems, and they'd be looking at, what type of animals are around, if people are feeding animals, if that's contributing to the fecal coliform in the water. So they've lined out the steps that they're taking to clean up the water. We'd be looking at the water quality data, the fecal coliform counts, and as they kind of go down, as these programs get implemented, we can say, okay, well, the trajectory is going this way. We're looking good. You know, we might not be meeting the water quality standard quite yet, but all the programs in place are good, and we're doing good things. So, you know, we're gonna open the shellfish bed based on some of these things, the actions that are being taken. So we could probably do something similar to this if we wanted. Now, it's been on the 303D list for a long time, actually. We just kind of recently found this out. So, so this is nothing new. It happened. We've been there for a while. It's just hasn't it hasn't been a priority for ecology to really come to us and say, hey, you guys need to do something about this. So, and they wouldn't come to you, they would come to the city.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, is Black Lake, do they have that, is it the same problem?
Yeah, they've got a.
So it's not like Barnes Lake, it's standing out, it's like
No.
everything in the
No,
area.
there's a lot.
There's too much phosphorus
Yeah.
everywhere.
There's,
Wait a minute.
well, and there's treatments for phosphorus too. If you wanted to just nuke it with alum, I mean, nuke it probably the wrong term, but if you wanted to apply alum throughout the water, that would decrease your phosphorus
I don't
counts.
even wanna know what happens.
But yeah, so there's give and take there too. I mean, I don't know what alum does to a water body, but.
You know, I think Barnes Lake is, I mean, as long as you're aware of it. Now, I mean, I wasn't aware that Barnes Lake was a 303D list on a list. Figured ecology would have told us, or we should have probably checked ourselves. But it does change some of the things that there's some monitoring that we have to do, this, that, and the other thing. But Barnes Lake is so small in comparison to other
Yeah.
lakes in the state. DOA only has so many people that can write up these programs.
Well, and it was so bad when we started, they didn't care what we did.
And they're
They
not,
said,
you know.
Take it, yeah, take it.
And I wonder if the numbers they're using are 10 years old
Yeah.
and if
Oh, yeah, they're
our water
Fifteen,
quality
20,
samples are much.
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, but I think they are, as long as you're doing the water monitoring now, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're showing. A positive direction. It's not that you're trying to.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, our data supports our listing, like
Yeah.
we're not meeting state standards. The last reading we took, we were at 4 micrograms per liter, and the state standard is 2, we need to be under 2. So we're still not meeting our requirements. I've seen past data, I've seen some real big spikes. Where it's something happened that we had a big phosphorus.
On
release.
our lake?
Yeah, of some kind, so it's kind of interesting to go back and look at the data and you know, compare that to years past, compared to now. We seem to be bumping along right now around 4, 5, 6, somewhere in there. Which, you know, there's room for improvement, but it's not the end of the world. So so this document, I kind of did a little bit of research and trying to figure out, well, what can we do in our everyday lives to kind of help this out? I'm not sure how many waterfront homes are on septic or how many are on sewer.
I wondered that.
No,
They know of them.
But you know what, Dave?
or nobody's on
This
septic
Yes,
anymore.
I know.
My next door neighbor is.
Oh, you're. kidding.
Hello?
Yeah. Yes, hi Dana.
Yeah,
Or the church. Oh, the
All
other
this-
one.
all this, Dave, that you did is stuff that people that are aware of the environment and stuff should be doing. And this goes out many, many times to people. So I don't know if we want to make it part of, you know, the little newsletter that goes out. This is how we can help Barnes Lake be in phosphorus reduction. But this is stuff I know. I mean, I just know it.
This isn't rocket science. This isn't
Yeah.
stuff that would change your life.
Yeah,
These are things that you can do and things that
Right,
people should be doing, but some people, they might not know, or they might not be practicing. You know, when we get into like, I looked at our sewer system and we do have sewer mains throughout Barnes Lake and the neighborhoods.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure how many are connected. So we could figure that out. I don't necessarily need to think we need to be pointing fingers though, saying you need to
Well,
get connected, you need to get connected.
I
or something.
will
Our
tell you
street,
one thing.
Lake Terrace Drive is all.
Yeah,
Now,
I don't think
listen,
that's the approach we want to take.
Can I say something else? Speaking of
go ahead,
the
Dan.
sewer system, okay, so the septic systems, but the sewer system from my house to the connector in the middle of Lark Street, your pipes are off kilter and all that stuff. And so if anybody's putting anything, chemicals or whatever, that's got to be running into the lake. And I have no, I mean, I had a clog several times and they came out and they did the picture down there. And so they're off kilter. So it's not just septic systems, it's the city sewer systems too.
You think the city sewer systems are leaching into the lake?
And it goes
I'm
off
sure
down
they
to
are. If
P2.
I mean, I have pictures where they're the big pipes or I forget what they call it. They're off kilter and cracked and all that stuff. And if anybody's using anything, that's got to be, and the sewer, if I'm flushing my toilet, it's got to be going somewhere. It's leaching into the ground. But the city wouldn't do anything about it. They said it was my problem. So you look at everybody
two
trying to
different
do
issues
their
there.
right thing by doing everything right. And, you know, sometimes there's a problem with the sewer system or the, you know, or the septics, you're right.
I think the kind of the summary would be that we need to figure out what the sources of the phosphorus are. 'Cause,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I look down this list and I think about the condos, you know, we're on the city sewer system.
Uh-huh.
Our landscaping folks don't use any fertilizers at all, let alone with
Yeah.
phosphorus. We have tons of vegetation surrounding the
Oh,
lake,
yeah.
buffer
So
zone.
that's where Doug's, you know,
So I, you know, I'm not sure where what the phosphorus source is now. That Badger leaves, that there's an issue that, you know, just the constant pine needle fall and the leaf fall and all that. If that's the source of the phosphorus in the lake, I'm inclined to say that's nature at work.
That's
You know,
right.
'cause
Yeah.
that's not human intervention and pollution. So,
Right.
so is the state's threshold of 4 micrograms per whatever, such a low level that it captures every lake in Western Washington? You know, I mean, let's just take a look at the problem here, because like I said, all that stuff that is on your list, the condos do. You raise a good question about sewer leaks or septic tank leaks. If we can do some research to figure out what the reality is, that might be useful.
with something like this, it's often hard to say it's one thing.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. I mean, we can look and we can look and we can look, and what happens when you start looking is you start finding it.
Yeah.
And
Well, I know that one of the sources is wildlife, you know, using the lake as their toilet. So what are we gonna do? Are we gonna chase all the wildlife away and
Not on the
scare
lake.
all the birds and the ducks? And that's, you know, it's absurd. We're
Then we
not gonna do
wouldn't
that.
have a paradise.
So again, back to the question of, is the standard so low that a naturally managed lake is not gonna meet it? If every lake in Western Washington is red.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe that ought to tell us something.
well, that's not the case.
That's not the case.
Not the case at all.
There's some big lakes, Stillicum Lake. Toxic algae blooms every single year. They are not a 303D phosphorus lake,
They have other problems.
you know, so it's lake specific for 303 for phosphorus. I mean, it could be the groundwater aquifer.
It could, yeah.
Could be the groundwater aquifer. We got,
Well, again, you know, I've had my soil tested a couple of times and my flower bed consistently comes up with high for potassium and phosphorus and low on nitrogen. You know, so that's just the dirt in front of my yard and I don't amend it with anything. So the dirt in the Barnes Lake area, because of all of the leaf litter and
Well,
things, maybe it's naturally high in phosphorus.
And again, I don't want this to be a conversation where we're blaming anything or anyone person or a group or neighborhood or anyone, you know, type of action that's up here. What this is meant to do is saying, yes, we have a problem with this. Currently, we don't know where it comes from. It could be coming from a lot of different inputs. These are some steps that we can do to try to reduce it. These are everyday steps, like Dana was saying, that wouldn't really affect our daily lives. It's just different decisions that we're making that we can do to help try to reduce our phosphorus levels in the lake. Now, the phosphorus levels that the reason why we have a state standard for phosphorus, a lot of it is because of algae and to reduce algae. We don't necessarily have that problem in Barnes Lake. So yes, we are exceeding the standard, but no, we don't have an algae problem. Now, do we not have an algae problem because we're using treatment, treatment strategies, or do we not have an algae problem because our orthophosphorus is
Your
such that-
orthophosphorus,
is
I'm
such
gonna
that-
say, is exceptionally low.
So there's some questions here that, that we still have. But I didn't want this discussion to go into blaming anyone group or anyone
no.
thing. So these are some actions that we can take in our everyday lives to help reduce that. Now, this is a draft of some actions. My hope is that we could develop this a little bit more into a kind of a neighborhood outreach campaign that we could, a little trifold pamphlet or something like that we can have available for folks in the neighborhoods to pick up and look at and say, oh yeah, I can probably do some of this stuff. I mean, the big ones here, folks are fertilizing their lawns. Pick some stuff with no phosphorus. I mean, that works. Aerate your lawn. That's another one too.
The moles are doing
No, there you go. So,
it. Really effective this year.
so there's stuff like that, and then obviously, just routine maintenance on your septic system. If you're on a septic system, if it is a sewer system issue, then yeah, we can have the city look at that.
Yeah.
And if there's, a need to get that repaired, then it's kind of handy. We've got, Dan is he's the director of the sewer system. So we can.
Welcome to March. Wait a second, wait a second.
We know people, so this is great. So it's a good thing. So that's the intent here with this. And as we learn more about our phosphorus problem, I'd really like to include ecology at some point into this conversation and find out exactly what their take is on this. So
Well, it's one of the things that we've tested the people coliform in our lake.
no, we haven't.
So we wouldn't, that would be an indicator of sewage system leak.
Well,
It could, yeah, or it could be geese, or it could be beavers, or, that's the problem with fecal. E. coli, you can test for E. coli, but again, they're probably gonna find stuff.
Yeah, just thinking about Dana's report and how we might be able to.
But
confirm that from-
I think that, that in a newsletter, a very compact 1, 2, 3, 4
Yeah,
things that an individual can do. Don't use this kind of fertilizer. If you got choices, just choose one of these,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is something you should do, because if you get ecology involved with this is what they're gonna tell you to do.
Yeah.
To put a mailing out, to do this, so you might as well be one step ahead of the
Yeah.
yeah,
game, and
And I think if you're an individual owner, I'm not an expert in fertilizer, but if somebody tells me, look for these numbers on it, well, I can do that.
yeah,
And go into like, say, I need it.
right,
And who knows?
exactly. So more to come.
I'm just wondering, do you know how many houses are on septic? I didn't know any were anymore.
Anyway.
Oh,
So we want
that,
it's expensive to hook up.
Yeah.
Really.
it's like. Set the standard for expensive, let me tell you. Because we got a downstairs bathroom. I don't know if you know this, we got a holding tank that then pumps it up the hill to get it to the sewer. And if that breaks. Yeah, $9,000.
All runs downhill.
We got a real phosphorus problem.
We just let go. That's why the plants are going really well.
Let's move on to private property lake
Yeah,
treatments.
there'll be more to come on the phosphorus front. So we're learning a lot right now. So it's kind of an evolving subject right now. So
that's really
We've already gotten it out.
And Doug, maybe you and I should talk offline about what this means for you and your work and.
Yeah, I'll go through the commit and see how it changes things.
Yeah.
They should put a little bit more monitoring.
Okay.
But look, I'm sorry about that happened.
No,
I don't think somebody, I know what the people, I mean, I understand what they're like, right? They're like, you're doing the work. And we're gonna hit you, but, that's harsh.
Well, what you're gonna see is, 303D list, it is gonna be more expensive.
Yeah.
On Barnes Lake.
That's another thing.
Yeah, it's gonna cost more. Because there's a lot more monitoring.
Wonder about those things in public service.
So do we have plans to do private property lake
Well,
treatment this year?
We do have, well, I think that we did have plans, but the water level being so low right now. I mean, we can go back in with the small boat and treat some of the areas out in the main lake basin itself. But I know that Sherry's was, had an issue with treating an area over her house. When we were over there last time, it looked to me like she'd already cleared out a 25-foot section of the shoreline.
She lives next door to Gary.
Next to
Oh,
and she had,
north of here? Oh,
yeah, and
that's really shallow.
I think she was the only one that was really considering having any type of work done on the contractual basis.
Oh,
But when we went over there, it looked like she'd already cleared out a 25-foot section. So
There just aren't that many lily pads coming up. I mean, in the olden days, I remember by Mother's Day.
Oh, yeah.
There were a lot, and then by Father's Day, it was a sea of lily pads, and
Yeah.
that just doesn't happen.
And there's just a lot of other questions of when you start going into like her property in particular, because there's a lot of woody shrubbery. That, we're not obligated to control, and I don't think the LMD is obligated to control.
So is that something that's still kind of a work in progress?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, because I was away and I was in a different time zone. I just felt like I couldn't grasp and to be of any assistance.
Yeah, no, they would, and eventually next time we go over, I'll sit down and talk with her, but I mean, she already had an area cleared out. So I didn't know what she wanted done.
Did it look like it was chemically treated or was it just brush?
No, it looked like they had hand removed a lot of the brush.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best place to start is hand remove.
Yeah. So, and
Okay.
it's, again, it's, now you're on the 303D list. I mean, you want to just try and leave as much shoreline vegetation as possible. I mean, you don't want to encourage removing shoreline vegetation.
Someone needs to talk to the
You know.
beavers then.
Yeah, exactly.
well, you know their language.
I tried. And I think we already talked about lake access update that you are going to dump more.
Yeah.
And so you're not needing to go through,
No.
because we're standing by, just say the word.
Okay, then lake levels, temperature, and maybe water quality.
Yeah. Scroll down, temperature and levels, so, lake levels, you've seen the graph here, we had a pretty calm winter, we really didn't get any spikes, and so we see that in the graph, now we're starting to head down and lake levels are starting to drop. Had a pretty hot May, which was, I think everybody felt. Yes.
Just interesting to note that we're hitting the berm level in May. And last year, we didn't hit it until July.
Yes.
And I'm wondering what the 5 or 10 year trend might be if we have data that far back.
I can check. We don't have this scale of data. We did some spot checks back in the day, like every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So it might show a little bit. But you're right. This last season, we had a very late start to summer.
Yeah.
And that was evident in the temperature and the water level. This
Right.
year, it seems like we had a very early start to summer.
Yeah.
So that's evident in the water level. And then the temperature, so I wrote some notes here. When we were out May 23rd, had the pleasure of meeting and working with Andre. It was awesome. Super kid. If you ever get a chance to spend some time with Andre.
We're working with the next generation now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
He is an amazing boy, so,
Great.
young man,
He's always riding his bike around.
so.
Oh, yeah, but he's not the only.
So May 23rd, we recorded the surface temperature at 22.3 degrees C, which is 72 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the highest we've ever had
Yeah,
in May. Highest ever we've had. The next highest was in 2019. It was 66 degrees, so it's 6 degrees warmer than we've ever had.
Well, we had record highs at the end of April, right? We had 90-degree
Yeah.
air temperatures,
Yeah.
so that would drive water temperature in May.
Yep. So it's gonna be a warm one. I'm curious to see what we're looking like later this year. These are temperatures we normally see in the lake in July and August. So we saw it in May this year, so.
It's gonna be a low year.
Yeah. Temperatures at all depths followed this pattern, so they were all warmer than normally. The bottom dissolved oxygen was 5.1 milligrams, and it usually hovers around 0 to 1, so that's good. We still have the water column seems to be still mixed quite a bit. Visibility with the Secchi disc was 7.75. That's the clearest we've had since 2013, 10 years.
Yeah, well, it really looks good to me, you know, out from our place.
Yeah, it really is.
It looks good.
Plain looking water.
Yeah, so that's a good thing. I mean, the highest we had ever in 2013 was 8 meters. This was 7.75 meters. So there you go. It's really clear, really warm. Sounds like a great year for swimming in the lakes.
But hurry.
Yeah.
Well, you still got water.
We'll be waiting.
I think it's all due to Doug's drone. I think the drone effect really helps the water.
Suggestion about doing the available phosphorus is a good idea, so
Yeah, I'm gonna look into that. for sure.
visibility is good, so. algae
Is
will-
that just a matter of just packing that on to what we request from the lab and paying another
Yeah.
$100?
Yeah, we'll figure it out. They actually might do that analysis as part of the total phosphorus. I need to figure that out. If they're doing, sometimes with the total nitrogen, they'll do a couple of different tests and then they'll get the total at the end, and that's what we pay for. I'm not sure if that works with the phosphorus or not, but I'll have to find out.
Yeah.
So it could be a two-parter with the total phosphorus.
Yeah.
If they're already doing it, we just get that.
That would be nice. Yeah.
Figure that out. So I'll figure that out. I don't think it's gonna be a huge expense, but something to look at, so.
I think the cellular reactive phosphorus is like $50. Right, they still have, we use in Tacoma. So that's a very minimal expense to get a really important number.
Total phosphorus during the sampling event was 0.04, state standard is 0.02, so there you go. Yeah, so that's really all I have for water quality and temperature. We're gonna be planning another event here probably in the next week and a half or so. Tim Tain was another volunteer we had with Andre. I don't think he's in the management districts.
No, he
technically.
lives on Little Street, which is right T section with
Yeah.
Mark. So, and so I guess a new neighbor, and so nice to have him be interested.
Yeah, he's a water scientist, so
Yeah.
retired. So yeah, it was actually good to, he talked to Andre too a little bit about, what this kind of work looks like, and Andre spark in his eye. I saw. So
I know, I saw it too.
How old are you?
He's 15.
Okay.
So he's at Black Hills. He'll be a sophomore next year, yeah.
yeah, and I mean, to be honest, the water sciences it's in demand. There's a lot of parts of that, so that's something that he wants to go into. There's definitely gonna be room for him to.
Well, yeah, born and raised on Barnes Lake. I don't know why you'd want to do anything else.
I know. Yeah. So yeah, that's all I got for that. I will reach out to the group for volunteers once we kind of look at some dates that I'm available. I got a lot of field work coming up, so I'm trying to fit in a sampling date coming up, so I'll let the group know.
Next up is future agenda items.
So one question I had is, the members that, are, whose term is ending. Like you, are you committed to another term?
So, yeah.
Dana, are you committed to another term?
Yes,
Who else was, on that list?
Oh,
Are you committed to
as
another?
long as
term?
I'm not off the island, yeah.
You're not.
Go off the island.
I'd have to check with Dan, he's kind of got that.
Oh, Lavani was
I was
another.
gonna say Lalani, I thought she was
Question.
Yes, I think that, I guess my feeling is that because of the integrity of, us as a steering committee.
Yeah.
It's important that people be here, and I know she has a lot of. Yeah, I mentioned to her that her term
It's
is
not,
coming up,
you
so.
know, that, I mean, yeah, she has. Actually.
Right. And then you get to, if she decides that she's gonna take a hiatus, then you get to find another person.
I can't hear very good. It's all
I was
muffled.
just,
I'm sorry.
I was telling Rusty if, Lalani chooses not to become a member, that he has to find someone else
Yeah.
from his corner.
And I think there's a possibility.
Just,
Well, everybody keep your options open. If there's anyone in the condos who expresses any kind of interest at all.
Yeah, I'll try to follow up on
Hunt them down.
whoever the one person is that was asking about it.
Everybody's getting older, you notice that?
I mean, Kathy, do you know anybody on Lark Street that would be interested? I mean, if I didn't want to do it, or what?
No.
we could brainstorm. But we could brainstorm about
Set up
that.
what's
My,
called for-
but if you can go another session of 2 years, that would be helpful.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
that's right. So do we need a motion about acknowledging these people, saying that they would, that they would?
Doesn't Dan usually?
Yeah,
Maybe right now.
anyway, I will confirm with Lalani,
Yeah.
confirm or
That's helpful.
unconfirm.
Yeah, because it's business. We need to mind our business.
There's probably gonna be an official agenda item that we have confirmations of vacancy and whatnot, so I would think, do it all at once and not have a.
Yeah, the next
piecemeal
meeting's
approach.
October.
Yeah,
So in the next meeting, the next formal meeting is October, which
Yeah.
seems so far off, but we do have the walkabout, September 13th.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we were hoping maybe the Waddington people would be participating in it.
I think they would.
Waddington, that was the people that, on little, I'm sorry,
Linwood.
Linwood.
Oh, all right.
Jeff
What's
Waddington
Waddington?
has the solar panels on the top of his house. He's
Yeah.
on Linwood.
Yeah.
Very friendly and
Yeah, yeah,
supportive of the
yeah.
LMD. So we were talking about maybe stopping at his house
I see.
at
We
the
could go down
walkabout, so
there
we can see the perspective of those poor people on the north end of the
Yeah.
lake who it's just a challenging area
Yes.
to treat and they feel a little left out.
Yeah.
And maybe if we had a better eyeballs on what's happening there, maybe we could come up with
Yeah.
some
Yeah, I was gonna
solutions.
say maybe during the walkabout, it'd be an opportunity to knock on the doors of the folks that were waving to Doug, and then maybe do a kind of Q&A with them
Yeah.
about that, or if we.
We could do that during the summer.
Yeah, in the mailings, we could put a note in there in advance, so they know in advance we're gonna do that or something like that. Or, yeah, one-on-one earlier, that'd be fine too.
And Gary and Jody are the representatives for them.
I mean, I know you not being part of this. Then your contact is maybe with one person. And one experience with.
Yeah.
He was out on the boat, he didn't come to my place, and
Right.
you tend to generalize, whereas.
So I think what we'll do is before that walkabout, we'll send a drone up and take a bunch of pictures. Single pictures of that northern section of the lake, so they can actually see. An aerial
Yeah.
of what
Yeah.
they're dealing with, or what
Yeah.
the Barnes Lake Committee is dealing with when they talk about trying to get in there to spray.
Well, I think, I mean, it's normal, you live in your little local place,
Yeah.
but like, they don't know what it's like at our house. No.
Mhm.
Our house,
even know what
it's gonna be flooded all the time.
I mean, they can go out in the middle of.
Yeah,
the-
they can't go lunch a lot.
Right.
Okay, well, are we adjourned?
I hope so.
Yeah.
Time for dinner, more or less.
Thanks, Dana.
Bye, Dana.
Bye, Jerome.
We have
Thanks, Doug.
a Jerry update?
Is there a bird in that
Oh,
cage up there?
Gary walked by my house.
Dana,
Yeah,
is there a bird up there in that cage
Yeah.
behind you?
no, just a bunch of stuff.
This is probably 2 weeks ago.
All right.
Nice.
Bye.
We done?
Bye.
Have a good day.